before I get to what I really want to talk about, which is a recent episode of The Interview Room where they interview clinical psychologist Gary Brancato, he profiles Bryan Kohberger. Before I talk about that, I want to talk about a recent clip that I saw on Harsh's show today. And it was about this story that came out very soon after the murders. And it was about a tripod being set up behind the house. Supposedly, this person who said that they were representing some sort of group, he never really clarified what kind of group it was, said that they set up a tripod to record activity between 8 p.m. and 8 a.m. And that at 2 a.m., the camera caught a woman leaving or running from the King Roadhouse. Now, I did a little bit of research, and when I say a little bit, I really do mean a little bit, because it didn't take long for me to learn that this was a hoax. This was something that some random attention seeker on the internet posted, and like many internet attention seekers, he didn't think that it was going to get a lot of traction, but it did, and he ended up deleting it and admitting that it was fake. So this never happened. This camera was never set up. Nobody ran from the house at 2 a.m. We know from Kaylee's dad, I'm not even going to say the PCA because I know everybody questions the PCA and I understand why, but Kaylee's dad said that his older daughter, Olivia, has a time-stamped arrival of Kaylee and Maddie getting out of the rideshare at 1:56 a.m. and that he knows that they were home at 2 a.m. and there was no noise, there was no anything going on that could have even remotely sounded like they were being attacked or they were being murdered. I don't know where this rumor came up about the 2 a.m. I think it was spawned from Ethan Chapin's parents' comment about how 2 a.m. is such a dark hour now, and I think that it refers to that's when we know that they were home and they were safe. And quite possibly it could be that Ethan replied to a text or contacted them, or that was the last time that he sent a text. But there's nothing that supports this rumor that the murders actually happened at 2 a.m. So with that said, I want to move on to this interview with Gary Brancato, Dr. Gary Brancato. Now, in the interview that Chris McDonough from the Interview Room does with Dr. Brancato, they talk about the questions that were found on Reddit. And in the first instance, they read the question and they bring up a really interesting point. And the question went something like, did you prepare for the crime before leaving your home? And Chris makes this really great point, which is most killers, right? The crimes that they commit, especially murder, oftentimes are done in the heat of the moment. They're done on impulse. So it's interesting that Kohberger would ask a question that is specifically directed to people who maybe methodically or who premeditatively planned out the act. You know, we always assumed that these were questions that he was writing for a thesis, but were they? Because now that we can take a second look at them, it sounds like maybe these questions were his way of preparing for what he was going to do. You know, this very well could have been an act that was many years in the making. And, and something that Dr. Brancato brings up is the act of escalation. He talks about the friend that Kohberger had whose apartment got broken into, and that he went and installed some sort of like security camera. It never occurred to me, but they brought it up that they think he was the one who broke in so that he could get access to her apartment. And this makes sense because, like I've said many times, I don't think you start at a quadruple murder. You move up to that. And I think he started at being a peeping Tom and watching these people, including the house. And they also talk about how social media itself, especially TikTok, not only provided him sort of a window into these women's lives, but a map to their home. The stairs, the bedrooms, the closets. Just through social media, he could get an idea of the layout of that house. And the planning, and that sort of thing would be part of the planning. And that planning, there's a certain power that comes with that, that knowing that you have this thing in mind to do, that you're watching these people and they don't know about it. And Dr. Brancato brings up how somebody who felt very powerless in his life, or felt like he wasn't great with women, or didn't have a lot of control in that area, that stalking helped him fulfill that need. Let's take a closer look at these questions. The second question on this list: after you arrived, what steps did you take before approaching your target or your victim? And I am interpreting that to mean once you arrived at your location, wherever you were about to attack, what did you do? How did you prepare before going into the house? And all of these questions really are about what he wants: a step-by-step guide, or as Dr. Brancato says, a blueprint to how to commit this kind of crime. And what's really eerie to me is in many of the questions he asks, what were you thinking and feeling? He asked people, what step did you take to accomplish your goal? Meaning, how did you start the attack? He asked, how did you approach your victim? What were you thinking and feeling? We were told that this was something he was doing, I think, for a thesis or something to do with school, and I don't think that's the case. What I think he was doing with this is he wanted information because he wanted to build a fantasy. He wanted to know what was involved. He wanted to know how he was going to feel, so that when he fantasized about it, and he most likely did, it was accurate. The fact that he is saying, what were you thinking and what were you feeling? You have to remember, this is a guy who wrote about how detached he felt. This was someone who didn't really feel. I think he said that he didn't have, he didn't feel anything towards people. He wanted to know what this was going to feel like. And this is why I say I think this was a thrill kill. Because I think that this is somebody who, if Bryan Kohberger is guilty, and I know you'll come at me in the comments, have at it, I think this is someone who wanted to know how, he wanted to feel something. In addition to wanting power, wanting control, wanting to exercise some rage, I think this is someone who wanted to feel something. But now I want to hear from you. What do you think about these questions? What jumps out to you or at you about these questions? And what one do you find most intriguing? Leave it in the comments.